Hello student. Now we are going to discuss about the priority of order. So if I discuss that priority of operation for three types of CSS that we have discussed, there are three ways of writing the CSS language, that is inline CSS, that is to be written inside the opening tag of the HTML element, and the internal CSS that has to be written inside the head enclosed with the style opening and closing tag, and the other way is external CSS, that CSS property are declared in the separate file, and by using the link tag we have to link the external CSS file with the HTML document. So those are three types of CSS that we can implement for designing our websites. So which type of CSS is more prioritized than others? Let us discuss about that. So external CSS that has the least priority of other two types of CSS. So if we use the external CSS, that is if I write the CSS property in a separate file, and if I link that CSS file with the HTML document by using the link tag, so that CSS property has least priority over other two types of CSS. So now let us talk about the internal CSS. Internal CSS has priority over external CSS. So as I told you, internal CSS that is to be written inside the head portion, right? So inside the head, by enclosing with the style opening and closing tag, we can write the CSS property. That is considered to be the way of using internal CSS. That is also known as the embedded CSS. So that way of writing CSS property has more priority than the external CSS. All these things we will be doing practically and presenting that to you, right? So we will start the practical now only. So the last one is the inline CSS. So inline CSS has priority over other two types of CSS, that is the internal CSS and the external CSS. So inline way of writing CSS, we know that is to be written inside the opening tag of the HTML, or you can say the specific HTML element. So that CSS will have further more priority over other two types of CSS, that is internal or the external. So let me show you all the thing practically so that you can understand in better way. So it's very important topic. Okay, so you can see head opening and closing HTML, that is the root tag, head portion, body portion, title, right? So I will take a H1 heading to show you all the types of CSS and to show you how each of one type of CSS has priority over other CSS. So let me show you. So see, H1 heading that I have taken over here. Let me write the let us decide priority order. So this thing I have written inside the head. So let us see. So priority.html. So which file I am accessing? Priority.html. Can you see? Let us decide CSS priority order. So now I will apply CSS. Okay, so first I will show you the external CSS. We know that I have to write the CSS property in a separate file. So I will create a new file. So I will go to other option, and once I have selected the other option in the left side panel, in the right side panel, you can see some options appeared. So out of these options, so I am going to create a style sheet, separate style sheet. So this file CSS, so you can see this I will select. I am going to create external CSS file, a separate CSS file. I will go to next, and let me write here style. This is the file name I have given. You may give other file name, that doesn't matter. So you can see now I have to locate. So you can see the location has been already set. See inside the user folder, inside the username, that is bit2, and inside the username we have our desktop folder. Desktop is a location, and we have the folder name, that is CSS class. Here this file will be created, style.css. So let me create this file. Finished. You can see that file has been created now. So now here I will write, see, so here I will write h1, see, h1 color will be red. So you can see this is the HTML file, and this is the CSS file, separate CSS file. So let me show you where this file exists. So inside, you can see inside desktop, here inside C we have the user folder. Inside the user folder we have the bit2 folder, and this is how we have located our files. So inside the bit2 we have the desktop folder, and here we have the CSS class folder, you can see, and under the CSS class folder we have this file, see, style.css, this file which we have just now created, style.css, and priority.html, that is this file, right? So these two files are located here in this class folder, CSS class, right? So now for this h1 heading, okay, I have written the selector, element selector that I have taken. This selector will indicate this heading, but I have written this thing in a separate file. Okay, so now unless I create a link, this will not work. See, so what I need to do, we already have discussed how to use the external CSS in the first CSS class. So here just in the head portion I will take the link tag, LINK, I will use the link, right? Inside the head I will use the link tag, and this link tag will just access this CSS property that I have written here inside the style.css. So I will write here style dot, and which type of file it is. Okay, so I have to mention the relation. What relation does this particular file has with this document? So that I have to mention. This is called relation attribute. So under the relation attribute we have to mention that what relation does this particular style.css file have with this priority.html document. So this is, so student, here I have created a link. So you can see using this link tag, now we can create a relation between the priority.html and the style.css. So now the CSS property, that is I am changing the color of the text that I have written inside this h1 selector. Now this file could be linked with this priority.html using this link tag. So link relation, what relation does this style.css has with this file? This is the style sheet, and we have to mention the file name so that it can access the CSS property from the given file. So let's see. So you can see the color that is changed to red, right? So now I'll show you. I told you that internal CSS has priority over the external CSS. Now let me prove you this line. So to prove you this line, I have to write here. Here I will write, let's see, style, right? So here I will write h1. See, so in the external file I have written, I have changed the color of h1 heading text to red, right? So that was executed properly. But now again what I have done in the priority.html, along with this file I have also written the internal CSS, right? And for this internal CSS, for the internal CSS, what I have done, so you can see over here that the internal CSS has also been used. So here I have written the same H1 heading, but the color will be green, right? So let me show you here. Now you can observe the color has changed to green, right? So it has been proved that internal CSS has priority over the external CSS, right? How this has been proved? Because external CSS, here I have written the color of the H1 text heading must be red. Previously it was red only, right? But now once I have written the internal CSS here, and the color that I have written here, the color must be green. So you can see this green color property has overwritten this file color, right, red. So that has been proved that internal CSS has more priority over the external CSS. Now I will prove this. Inline CSS has priority over the internal CSS and external CSS. This line I will prove you now. See, so we know that we can write the internal CSS inside the opening tag of the HTML object. So this is the HTML heading opening tag. So here I can write the internal CSS, that is HTYLE, and here I will write COL, color. So color will be, let's say, blue. So you can see now I have applied the internal CSS. So here in the internal CSS I have changed the color to blue. So now you can see that the text color was red that I have written inside the external CSS. Okay, that was overwritten by the internal CSS. Internal CSS color I have written here green, so it has overwritten, the color has converted to green. Now again I have changed the color to blue, that I have written inside the inline CSS. So let's see. Now you can see the color has changed to now blue, right? So that means it has been proven, it has been perfectly proven that the inline CSS has priority over internal CSS and the external CSS. So I hope you have understood. Now let us discuss about this thing, priority operation for CSS selector. So we have discussed about 5 types of selector, right? So which selector does have priority over other selector, that we are going to discuss here today. So universal selector has the least priority, right? Universal selector has a least priority. Element selector has priority over the universal selector. Okay, so class selector has priority over the element selector as well as the universal selector. And finally ID selector has priority over all types of selector. ID selector has priority over all other types of selector. So in the previous class we have discussed about the types of selector that we can use. There are 5 types of selector along with the attribute selector. Attribute selector are least used, so that I'm not going to discuss here about the priority. So mainly these 4 types of selector are used. So I will show you practically which types of selector has more priority over other types of selector. So let us discuss all these things practically. So here you can see, so I don't need this file now. What I will be doing, so inside the internal CSS I will show you only inside the internal CSS, right? So let me show you. So I will do one thing. I will here I will take 4 heading, H1, H2, H3 and finally H4, right? So I have taken 1 2 3 4 heading, right? So same thing is written over here. So you can see same thing, same text that is written, but you can see the difference in size. Why difference in size? Because yeah, H1 will be the largest and H2 will be the having a smaller size comparing to H1. H3 must have smaller size comparing to H2 and H1 heading, and H4 will be having a smaller size, much more smaller than 1 2 3 heading, right? So let me delete all the inline CSS. I will delete all the inline CSS now. Yeah, it's okay. So now you can see this is the default color. Okay, so now I will do one thing. I will delete this. Now let me show you. You can see this is the default color, black. Now here the first thing I will do, I will declare the universal CSS by star. We know that how can we declare the universal CSS, that is by the star, right? Here this is how we can declare the universal, that is universal selector, right? So by the star. So if I write here color, let's say red. So once I have written this thing, see, universal, the text color will be changed to red. So this will be applicable universally to all the elements. So here I have 4 elements, that is H1, H2, H3, H4. 4 heading I do have over here. So the text color of all those 4 headings will be converted to red because universally I have declared. So that will be executed and that will be implemented to all those 4 headings. So let me show you here. You can see as I have declared universal color will be red. You can see the color has been converted to red for all those headings, right? So now I will do one thing. See, okay, let it be written over here. So now I will write another thing. Here I will write H2. Okay, now see, now you can see what I have written over here. So now I am just changing the color of H2 to green, right? But previously, as I have declared the universal color of all the element will be red, that means previously the color of all those 4 headings were changed to red. Now I am just writing H2 color separately. I am specifying using the element selector. So let me prove you this thing. Element selector has priority over the universal selector. So element selector has priority over the universal selector. So this is the element selector, which element I am indicating by writing H2, this element. So now it will affect this H2 heading and the color of H2 heading will be changed to green, right? So you can see, let me show you. So can you see the color of H2 heading has been changed to green. So if I write here another H2 heading, so you can see if I write here another H2 heading, let me write here hello world. So I have written hello world. So you can see another H2 heading I have taken. So both the H2 heading will have the green color, right? I hope you have understood. So this line has been proven. Element selector has priority over the universal selector. I hope you have understood. So if I make it at the top, that is if I write this thing just above the universal selector, will there be any change in the priority? No changes in the priority. So right, so you may write it at the top, you may write it at the bottom, but there will be no change in the priority. So this has been proven that the element selector has more priority than the universal selector. So if I write here H1, so that means H2 and H1, so both this heading will inherit this green color property. Okay, so the property that I have written over here, the color must be red, that I have declared under the universal selector for all the element, but specifically I am mentioning these two element will inherit green color. So this red color for H2 heading and H1 heading, that will be overwritten by the green color, right? Now you can see for both H1 heading as well as H2 heading, you can see the color is green, right? Because specifically I have mentioned that H2 and H1 heading must have the green color, right? So I hope you have understood. Now let me prove you this particular line. So class selector has priority over the element selector and universal selector, right? So class selector has priority over the element selector and the universal selector. So let me show you now the class selector. So let me write here. So I will write here class, right? Class, color COLOR. So color will be blue. Okay, so see, I have declared a class here now. So you can see. So now you can see these two fast two heading, that is H1 heading where it is written let us decide CSS property order, and this heading the second H2 heading let us decide CSS property order. So only, so I am grouping these two heading, right? I am just about to group these two heading, the first two heading here, this heading and this heading, right, under a class, right? The class name, so class name that I have written here, okay, let me write here ABC. The class name will be ABC. Can you see the class name? Use a different class name that I have given over here, that ABC. So let me use the class selector. This dot will refer to the class selector, that is ABC, right? Now color, I am changing the color now. It will be, right, it will be blue color, right? So you can see, so class selector will be represented by dot ABC, that is the class name, user defined class name, and the first two heading I have categorized under the ABC class. So this these two objects that I have grouped under the ABC class will inherit this color CSS property, and the color value is blue. So for this two heading the color will change to blue. In spite of that, previously the element selector that I have declared for H1 and H2 heading obtained the green color, and the universal selector that I have declared red color for all the element, this will overwritten, right? Class will overwritten. Now let me show you here. So class selector has property over element selector and universal selector. Now it is a time to prove this. See, so the color of these two will be changed. You can see. Can you observe? After I have used the class selector and under the class these two heading were categorized. So now you can see the color that has been changed to blue, right? So you can see the color of this heading is still green. Why? Because this is also a H2 heading, right? For the H2 heading here, by using the element selector, it is set to green, so that has overwritten red. All other here I have not specified by element, neither by class selector. So this two color has been inherited by the universal selector. This color of H2 heading has been inherited by the element selector, but for this first and second heading, as because class selector has much more priority over element selector and the universal selector, that is why these two heading will inherit the CSS property from this declaration that I have written here under the ABC class. So if I write here at the top, will there be any difference? Let me show you. I have written at the top. So will there be any difference? If I do the and refresh, see, there are no such difference. So wherever you want you can write this, but this line has been proven that class selector has priority over the element selector and the universal selector. Now let me prove you this last and final line. So that is ID selector has priority over all other selectors. So let me show you the priority of the ID selector. So I told you that when you have to use the ID selector for a specific given element, you can use the ID selector. That is also a user defined selector as the class selector, and you should never have more than one element assigned with same ID name. So ID name must be unique to each and every element. If you use more than one ID selector in your document, then the name that you are going to provide for each ID must be different from one and another. That has to be kept in mind while you are doing the web page designing. So ID selector is a uniquely entity for a given object, right? So as the other number, as the roll number, ID will specify a given or a specific object, or you can say a specific element. So let me show you. So I will write here. So here, in spite of having the class selector, here I will write ID equal to, let's say, DEF. Okay, DEF. So I use a defined name I have given, right? So now let me write here. ID will be addressed by the hash symbol, right? ID will be addressed by the hash symbol, and you can watch out over here that, see, so this is the ID. You can see I will change the color to violet, right? So see, so ID will be referred by hash. This will indicate to this first heading, because here I have used the ID selector, right? User defined name I have given DEF, right? And I can create another ID over here. So before that I will show you the output before creating another ID. So you can see, so this H1 heading, okay, for this H1 heading it has four, you can see, four separate occurrence of CSS property. So you can see the first one was universal selector. It can take the property from here, okay, but as because I have used the element selector, it will be override the universal selector, so it will take the property from here. As because again I have used the class selector, that is ABC, it will again overwritten. So it has overwritten and taken the property from here. It has overwritten, it can overwrite, the class will overwrite other two selector. Now finally, along with the class I have also added the ID selector. Now ID selector will override ID selector, that means the declaration I have written over here, that will overwrite the declaration, this declaration, class declaration. Let me show you the output. So now the color of the text will change to violet. Let me show you. Can you see? Now this line has been proven that finally ID selector has priority over all other selectors. This has been proven, right? So if I do one thing, if I cut it from here, if I paste it at the top, will there be any difference? So there will be no difference. You can write anywhere you want, so there will be no difference of the priority order, right? So if I write here ID equal to, let's say, DEFGHI, so another ID, right? Another ID I have written. So number of ID selected we can use in a document, there are no restriction. But where is the restriction? Had I written over here that DEF, then there is restriction. This is wrong, so I should not have written DEF for both these two separate elements. You can see a warning message has been shown that duplicate ID DEF. So duplicate ID DEF, this warning has been shown as I told you, this specifies uniqueness to a given element. So you can't have duplicate ID selector in a document. So each and every ID selector must be unique. It should have a unique name, as like your roll number and the other number. So let me give a unique name, DEF. You can make it EFG. So it's a unique name, EFG. So this name is only given and assigned for this heading, so I don't have a duplicate of this given name. So let me write it over here. So EFG. So ID will be referred by hash EFG, and now I will write here color. I will change the color to, let's say, I will make the color brown, right? So brown. So you can see now for this first and second heading, it has the class selector as well as the ID selector, and previously also it has been written over here. So the element selector as well as the universal selector, but as ID has the more priority, so this will overwrite all other value that I have mentioned over here, right? So you can see it has changed to brown. So this line has been typically proven that ID selector is more prioritized selector, okay, above all other selectors that you can use, right? So thank you students for paying attention and watching this lecture till the end. So subscribe this channel if you have not subscribed yet. If you like this video, if you think this video will be helpful for you, then do click the like button and also click the bell icon so that I can notify you. You will be notified when I will upload the next lecture class video, and in the next video I will discuss about the CSS, different CSS property that you can use in your web pages, right? Thank you.